Yo, I saw you had Rick Hyde on here too.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually gonna mention it in the intro, but yeah, had Rick Hyde, I'm Young World as well, also was on the show really early on. So yeah, we've had a few guests I noticed that we've both worked with.
Sick. Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, both Buffalo guys, and I have roots to Buffalo, which is kind of how like we all got connected.
Well, I'm definitely going to have to ask you about that then. Because I also saw you got a track with Benny the Butcher as well.
Yep.
And you remixed one of Take Nine songs. So there's like, as much as you're a DJ producer in house, there is some hip hop roots as well. So I always love finding those little seeds that link to the show. But it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. The one and
Thank
only
you.
DJ producer, the man who does it all. Bijou is on the show. And man, I appreciate it because you're really busy. I mean, you're touring, you're making tracks. You've already dropped like 3 tracks this year. I think the most recent
Yeah.
one was The Way We Touch. And then you've
Yep.
got Santra Pay, you've got Moneybag, Back It Up. Like it feels
Yeah.
like you've got really great momentum. You know, we're now close to the midway point of 2023, but it feels like there's really good momentum heading into the back end and then obviously to 2024.
Totally. Yeah, those tracks, a lot of them we were sitting on for quite some time. Like Moneybag, we were sitting on for like a year, you know? Like we almost had the vocal dropped off that because we had been waiting for so long. The Way We Touch is like 2 years old, and we just been kind of reworking records, and like the release schedule is done for the entire year, like the entirety of it. Like I got a track coming out this week on Thrive with this vocalist named Purple Velvet Curtains, this rapper from the UK. Um, Next month there's a remix that's coming out for the Funk Hunters out of Canada. Monster Cat release in August. Got a couple more things on Nightbase. Like, so I'm kind of already I'm working on like a bigger project right now that's gonna come out early next year, and that's kind of like halfway done right now, and I'm figuring out what the next steps are going to be. So there's a lot in motion. Like I think my fault. I think I rescheduled this like twice just because like I was so busy. Like I was in LA and I was on tour and I was in New York. Like I was all over the place.
Which is very understandable though. Like when you're trying to figure out where you are when in the
Yeah.
middle of doing interviews, this is like the weird thing of like my part of it is like I got to catch you all in the middle of enough time for you to be able to sit and focus and be
Yeah.
able to concentrate because like you said, your schedule is crazy right now. Like the amount of stuff that are going on, like for you to even have the ability to sit down and go, okay, I can focus for an hour and a bit to just talk about the things I need to do and not actually get anything done
Mhm.
is really, well, I always appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, I like doing this stuff. It's fun. Like, dude, I had 2 meetings already today. When we're done, I have to go to the merch warehouse to finalize like the new merch design. So like it never ends. We're in June. I have 10 shows in June. I was in LA for a week, and then I was in LA for another. It's hectic, but it just comes with the territory. It's kind of the life I signed up for and dreamed about. And it's funny because I'll talk to artists, like people will probably think I'm insane for what I'm about to tell you, right? Artists will be like, yo, I want to tour, I want to tour, I want to tour. And I'm like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, are you positive? Because it's a lot different than you think it is. Like, yeah, being on the road is exciting. It's so much fun, but also it's very draining. You miss weddings, you miss birthdays, you miss holidays. I had to tell one of my best friends today, I don't think I can come to his wedding party in September. Like there's an extreme amount of sacrifices that you also have to make to live this life, and it's difficult, like sometimes you feel terrible for those things that are happening in personal matters, but it's like, yo, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to do this. It could end tomorrow. So I got to do what I got to do.
I think that makes sense though, because yeah, I think when you're young, you think that the touring life is all that matters because
Mm-hmm.
you don't really have perspective on your personal life. You don't have perspective on momentous occasions that happens with the relationships that you have. And then as you grow, as you get older, as connections become deeper and more valuable to you, then all of a sudden you realize the true sacrifice. Because I think what people see is just the stage time. They just see you
Yeah.
on stage, lapping it up, having fun, but they don't see the fact that you have to get off stage, deal with sound, deal with stage, deal with like travel. Where are we going to go next? What does accommodation look like? How do we deal with the team? How do I make sure I continue all my like working relationships and then perform the next show at the same level that I did my last show?
It's really, really difficult. And like in May, this is crazy because like I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, right? My AC went out at my house. And we're talking like Arizona summer where we're like above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius. America just decided to do it differently than everyone. Like we're the only people who do Fahrenheit, I think, other than Mexico and maybe South America. But like it's fucking hot, yo. And I had to live in hotels and my parents' house for like almost a whole month, you know?
Wow.
Because I had to deal with my landlord, and then they had to deal with the fucking warranty company, and then the warranty company was taking forever, and then the AC company is like, well, we can't do anything until we have the new unit in. Then the new unit came in, and another piece broke when they installed it, so like they fixed it after 2 weeks, and then it broke the same day again. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to? And the week before that, I was in LA for a whole week in a hotel. So I spent almost 5 weeks pretty much living in a hotel with a makeshift studio, trying to figure out how I'm gonna make music in a hotel without being too loud. Meanwhile, I was like, this is the first time I'm publicly saying anything. I was going through like some health shit where I had to like go to the doctor and I almost fucking thought I was gonna die and all this crazy shit was going down. And it's like now we're in June and I'm like, cool. I have 10 shows. How are we gonna navigate everything? Like I don't those are the sides of things that people don't see.
I think they forget that you're a real person as well. That's what they forget. They, I mean, they have this relationship with you of like what they see on stage, what they see on social media, and they forget that you're just like everybody else in the sense of like if your air conditioning breaks down, you also have to like deal with annoying companies and like people who are like that's not my fault, that's their fault, and then your landlord and stuff like that. I think that's what people really forget is that stuff doesn't go away. That stuff still
Correct.
exists for you. And only like the super rich, they can only handball that stuff, but still it happens. Like
Yeah.
it's not like all your problems disappear. They're just like also happening at the same time.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that like they're worse. Like I still have a home to live in, but like I still have to run my entire business. I sound like I'm complaining right now, which I shouldn't be because like life is good. Let me just say that life is really good, right? But like, yo, that shit sucked. I didn't want to deal with that. And here's what's funny is the week before it got fixed, the landlord approved the Airbnb, and I rented this Airbnb that was like this house from the 60s and it was up on this mountain and it was cool and blah blah blah. Get there, AC don't work.
Fuck that.
So, but I like the point that like you bring up, like I'm just a normal person like everyone else, I just have a job that is magnified where people look at me as something different. So like when I meet people who are fans and they treat me any differently, like one of the first things I always tell them is like, yo, I'm just like you. I'm a normal person. I just do this for a job. That doesn't make me any better or any different from you whatsoever.
Yeah, I think that changes on depending on scale though. Like there is a point where this is no longer like you're no longer a normal person where like the fame and the recognition gets to you. Like once you're at like Lady Gaga level, like you're when they say I'm a normal person, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. You're not normal anymore. Like you guys, like I know what you're trying to do because I get it makes sense. You don't want to be like, I'm way above or I'm way different to all my fans. You're trying to still connect with them, but their lives are so different in the sense of they cannot even wrap their heads around what a normal life looks like. But
Yeah.
not being below that level of like ultra famous, you're still dealing with normal stuff. Like you can, I'm sure, go to the supermarket and not be mobbed with fans.
I deal with some of that here and there. Like in Arizona, it's definitely tough. Like I was in Winnipeg on Saturday. Saturday, yeah. And like I got to the hotel and there was like people waiting at the hotel. And I was like, what? This has never happened before. Like, what's going on? But like the thing for me is, right, I could get to this certain point that's so big, which I do want, but I also want to be treated the same as anyone else would be treated, you know? Because like I just wasn't raised that way. Like my dad was a school teacher, my mom is a flow cytometrist, which is like kind of hard to explain.
Yeah, I was
And
going to say you're going to have to explain that to me because I have no idea what that is.
so basically what they do is she's the manager of her lab. So anyone who's getting tested for like cancer and getting biopsies and things of that sort, they send it to her lab and that's where they do the testing.
Okay,
So like that. So like
that
that's
was you're very good at. You've explained that many times. That's like practiced because I would fumble all over that if you had to give me a shot.
yeah, I asked her, I was like, yo, what's the easiest way for me to explain what you do so that people will understand this because it's gonna happen? And she's like, oh, I'm gonna have to think about that because it's not that easy to explain. And I'm like, all right, just give me like the elevator pitch, super simple. And that's what it is. That's almost exact words.
That is like scientist level response where you're like, hey, can I ask you a question? They're like, let me get back to you. Let me formulate. First, I need the theory behind it. And then I got to come up with my original hypothesis. We got to test it out.
Yeah, and I'm just like, yo, like I don't think that way. I hated school. Like I have an artistic mind. Just make it simple.
So let me ask, you have an artistic mind. Your parents, obviously, education is a big piece. Your father being a teacher, your mother being in science. How was that relationship of them discovering and you discovering your artistic nature and then realizing that you really didn't enjoy school that much?
So my dad was in music for a really long time. He was a manager. He still somewhat manages the bands that he was managing in the 90s as like Arizona local bands now. Like beforehand, they almost got signed to Hollywood Records in the 90s. Like
Oh,
they
wow.
there was a lot of bands from Tempe, Arizona, where I'm from, that were getting signed to these major label deals. It was weird. It was like a breeding ground for like these rock and roll bands. And I obviously was a baby, so I don't understand it, but he still sings, still plays guitar. Like my brother's in town right now, and apparently they're like at the house recording some song. My dad's like, "Yo, your brother can sing. We got to make the song." And I'm like, "I've fucking heard him sing to a song in the car. That doesn't mean he can sing." But like, so there is definitely a very strong musical background from my dad's side. But there's also like a sports background, which is where I come from as well. Like my mom ran marathons, my dad played college basketball. Like I played college baseball and played professionally. So I've lived like a lot of different lives, and from like I guess a school standpoint, I'd say grade 8 was, or maybe even grade 6 is when everything changed because they moved me schools in 5th grade. And in 6th grade, I went to middle schools, like a 6th through 8th, right? And my dad was a teacher there. And that's when like the trouble started.
Yeah.
You know, I was just like, I'm in the school with my dad's my teacher, like, fuck this. And I like got into graffiti and was super into graffiti and that whole realm. So that like kind of got me into hip hop. And I was like, yo, like this shit is cool. Like I want to do all this. And then I started getting rebellious, but somehow kept playing sports. So like, dude, I did graffiti and was super into the graffiti world until age like 25, probably.
Oh, wow. That's long.
Yeah. So from age probably 14 to 25, like, I don't know if I can say this because of like legal shit, but like,
I
I
think
definitely,
Well, let me say, I have a law degree. I don't know how helpful it will be. I've never been a practicing lawyer. Let me say that. So any advice I give, no one ever listened to. But I'm pretty sure we can use this as like this is just you trying to tell a story that may or may that's not really necessarily true. Just to it's artistic. There's no admission of guilt here.
yeah, there's no admission of guilt and there's no evidence, you know, but
Yeah.
like, definitely was very ingrained in the freight train graffiti world. We'll just say that, you know, with some people who were like very well known in that space. And like in that time, like I discovered dance music because I was playing baseball and was just like, how can I combine house music and hip hop? Because like 6 years old, I was introduced to Tupac by like one of my older cousins. Like, yo, this shit is sick. And then I got introduced to dance music when I was 19 or 20, no, 19. And then I was like, how can I combine these things? And hadn't started producing, hadn't really started DJing yet, but went to a show in 2010. Yeah, 2010 called Nocturnal Texas. Doesn't even exist anymore. Massive rave in Rockdale, Texas, in the middle of nowhere. 40,000 people. Saw like Armin van Buren, Avicii, Donald Glaude. Saw like Porter Robinson on a side stage at 3 p.m. And this guy's now like selling out Red Rocks. And I was like, this is the sickest shit ever. Went home the next day and like downloaded Virtual DJ. Was like, I'm gonna be a DJ. And then it kind of there's a lot of crazy shit that happened between then and now.
So it was just that quick for you? Like you just got the bug that like it was just like it clicked. It was just like I have to do it.
Yeah, immediately. I've always been that way. When I find something that I really love, it just clicks. It was like that with graffiti. When I discovered graffiti, immediately I was like, this is so sick. I want to do this. I want to do art. Started drawing every single day. Like I know my parents still have like my old black books somewhere, and the first introduction was I was playing baseball in the West Coast League. We were in Kelowna. I was 19 years old. We were out at these clubs. We're at this place called Cheetahs, which is like a Hell's Angels like clubhouse. It's like owned by the Hell's Angels, right? It's literally like a club, but also a strip club all in one. Like we're 19 years old in Canada. Like, yo, we're getting trashed. Like we can drink here. And we meet these girls and they're like, yo, we're taking you to this what's it called? We're taking you to this like rave or this club with like EDM music. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, but like you girls are hot. Like, let's go. like, let's go have fun. And went and they introduced me to like Tiesto and Dead Mouse and this and like I'm just like, yo, this is the sickest shit ever. Like people are in here. Like honestly, what caught me initially was like the girl aspect of it because like there's so many hot girls at these parties and it's so cool, but like the music is amazing, and everyone's so happy. I mean, little did I know at the time, like everyone's on drugs, but like the next day I found out Dead Mouse is playing on the beach in Kelowna. We have a baseball game and like we could hear it from the field. I'm just like, this is so tight, and then went to school the next year and in Oklahoma and went to that rave and was like, all right, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, that's like it's weird because as you're talking about it, like you have a potential professional baseball career there in front of you. Like,
But yeah, which I did pursue. Like I ended up playing professional baseball for a year and a half.
and then what made you just be like, was it I just want to go all in as a DJ?
So okay, so 2010 was when this all happened, right? And I discovered this local promoter called Hades Entertainment, right? It's owned by this guy named Themio, who was my first ever manager. And still friends with him to this day. I saw him last week. He came to our label party in LA, which was amazing, like, which is another story, and started working for him as a promoter. Like in the meantime, doing online promotion, just like I got a bunch of friends, like let's get them to your shows, blah, blah, blah. Then I'm like back in Arizona. I'm passing out flyers at the let out of shows and on campus at ASU and selling tickets and like building like this local profile and started playing some bigger shows for like Relentless Beats, who are like the major promoter here. Um, Started playing shows for Bankhead Productions, which is like Daniel, my manager, who you've spoken to. That was his promotion company back in 2012 before
Wow.
like he was even managing me. Um, I'm playing baseball through this time, right? Going to school, still trying to do this and do both. Um, I totally fucked off my senior year of college for sure. Like second semester, I went to school for the first 2 weeks and didn't go back. I was like, this is my final season. They can't take me out. Like, I'm going to just do music and go work out with my coach in the morning and go to practice. Failed every class, right? My parents
Not
weren't happy.
surprising. Not surprising considering you didn't go to school.
It's funny. The last project I did was in speech class. My first speech, the first week of class, I got a 0. It was about my baseball glove, and I was so nervous, like speaking in front of a whole class. I had like stage fright. For the next week, my teacher made me go around with her every day after class and speak to her in front of the entire campus, like with people all around, right? Did a project on EDC in Vegas, which I had been to, got a 98 out of 100 and never went back to school.
That was like the mic drop moment for you. That was like, I'm done. I'm finishing at the top.
Literally, I was like, fuck this. It's cool. Also within that 2 week time frame, I discovered I discovered Breaking Bad and I started watching it, binging it. So that was definitely a kicker. Because I got to week 2 and I was like, nah, let's just watch Breaking Bad. School's done.
Yeah, I don't love that advice for kids of like that's the second path. But to be fair, and this is the redeeming quality, is that look at where you are now. It worked. But I will say the thing that I notice about your story is like what you did of passing out flyers and promoting and literally spending time standing, giving paper and pamphlets and like trying to sell stuff. That's
Hmm.
all stuff people never want to do. Like that is a huge fear for people of like, it's embarrassing that I'm standing out here handing paper to people going, it's like, you go on holiday, you go traveling somewhere and those people hand out like bus tour stuff and you're like, man, that would suck to do that job. So
Yeah,
as much as the the hustle never disappeared, it was just directional in the sense that it was in a different direction.
totally. And when like getting back to like I've been a hustler from probably age 6. I was hustling kids for Pokemon cards in first grade. Like, I'm getting all these cards and I'm trading these, and you don't know they're whack, but I do, and I'm getting your good cards. So like, I was hustling kids at 6 years old. Like there's a lot. There's so much. So like when I started, I got injured my first season of professional baseball, and I had to rehab because I was playing indie ball, which is like cutthroat. And like I sprained my UCL, went from starter to the bullpen, still played, got re-signed the second year, and halfway through, like I kind of sat there and looked at it and was like, I don't love this anymore. You know, when I'm the type of person where if I do something and I don't love it anymore, I have no fear of walking away.
What about it didn't you love anymore?
It wasn't fun. Baseball was meant to be fun. Like I started doing that as a kid because it was fun and I loved it. And I loved the competition and I loved my teammates and things of that sort. And now I was being paid to do it. It was complete shit pay. It's like money you can't even survive on. I'm 23 years old, living at my parents' house, which is fine with me. I'd live with my parents now if I could. And but I was so deep in music now from like a love standpoint that I fell out of love with baseball and was like, I think this is the next thing in my life. So one day I came to my parents and I go, look, I'm gonna retire from baseball next week. And I was scared shitless. Because from age 5, my mom and dad have been supporting me in this. I can legitimately say my dad probably spent his last dollar many times so that I would be happy and have what I needed to play, you know? So, and here they are, and they're like, all right, cool, whatever you want to do next. And I'm just like, what just happened? Like, mind blown. I retire. Themio's still managing me. No, he wasn't. We had a falling out, right? Over some shit that happened. We had been throwing shows and I'd been helping him. Like, I had built a pretty strong local following. Like, I could probably pull 200 to 250 people as a local at that point. And I have no music out. I'm
Mm.
just a local DJ. And went to Thomas Turner, who was the owner of Relentless Beats, still is, and was like, look, here's what happened. Like, either you guys can ride with me or I'm gonna figure this shit out either way. And he's like, all right, we'll ride with you. 2 years, I got a shitty job working at Jersey Mike's. Good friend of mine. I'm like making sandwiches, like, yo, I'm just gonna work here. I'm gonna figure it out. Funny you have a law degree because I was a pre-law major and wanted to be a defense attorney. So never got my degree, obviously, didn't graduate from school. Um, and in November of 2015, actually, let's backtrack. October 2015, I almost quit music. No one was signing my music, didn't know what to do. A couple things had happened with like some guys were playing some of my songs, which is great. And I emailed this dude named Wax Motif, who's like one of my homies now, and was like, look, dude, I'm gonna quit music. I don't know what to do. Like, this is kind of like my last ditch effort to see what happens. And I sent him this song called I'm a Dog.
Can I ask before you say the song that you sent, what was the mindset at that time? Like when you look back, when you were thinking about quitting, like where was your headspace at? What was your mind thinking about, and what was the contemplation?
I'm 25. I'm still at my parents'. I'm fucking dead broke because I'm spending all my money I can to travel around the country and meet promoters and talent buyers and people in the industry, right? So like I'm like, what am I gonna do? I'm about to turn 26 in 6 months. I have to get health insurance. I can't even afford that, right? So I'm like, I gotta make money somehow, figure something out. And I'm still working this job. So I'm like, I might have to finish this and go do something else, right? So
Did
send
you
this
know what you were
email.
going to do?
No idea. I literally sat there and was like, I will figure it out. That's just how I am. I'm, I don't know. I have a weird thing about me where I just have faith and so much confidence in myself that if something's wrong, I will fix it. I don't know what I'm going to have to do, but I will figure it out. And no one's going to stop me and nothing will stop me from doing that. And I'm that same way to this day. Um, so I send the email, no response for a month. Or no, 2 weeks. And I'm like, fuck, dude, like Danny's not responding. Like, what am I gonna do? And that 4 week span was so crucial because I had started to form my relationship with Dr. Fresh, who's now one of my best friends. And 10 days later, Tony's like, yo, I want to sign this for my label, which was Prep School Recordings at the time. And I'm like, holy shit, okay, maybe here's the breakthrough. Like, Tony's gonna do it. 4 days later, so Danny on Facebook, Wax Motif at that time, right? Every month he came out with his top 10 tracks of the month. He comes out with it. He never responded to the email, but he puts this song that's not out as number two.
Wow.
And I'm like, yo, okay, this just got signed. This is number two. We're not quitting. 2 weeks later, I'm at work and I get the weirdest call. Thomas, my manager, calls me, and you're going to be like, what the hell? How old are you?
29.
Okay, so you'll know this era. So I get a call. And I'm like, yo, Tom, I'm at work. I only have a second. And he goes, well, I have an opportunity for you. And I'm like, okay, what is it? He's like, Kevin Federline needs a new producer. And I'm like, I'm good. Like, you don't even need to go further. And he's like, bro, like, this is an opportunity. You could quit your job. I was like, I want nothing to do with Kevin Federline. I got to go back to work. Thanks for calling. Hung up. Right. I I don't even know. Like, I've never had a conversation with Thomas like that since. Like, it's always very different. But that one, I was just like, no fucking chance.
I
2 weeks
love
later,
I love that you're even at that time, you're like, I'm desperate as shit. Like I'm so desperate right now to get anything going. And even K-Fed, I think that's what we called him here in Australia. We couldn't be bothered saying the whole name. So
he did
even
too.
even K-Fed, you get a call up and you're like, pass.
I'm like, nah, I'm good. Like, my reputation's very important to me, and it still is. And I was just like, nah, no, bro, I'm good. Right. So I was like, I'm on a high. I just got this track signed. Wax Motif is supporting me. Like, nah, we're good. Like, everything's gonna be fine. Right. Total flip of the mindset. 2 weeks later, Thomas calls me. I'm at work again. I'm like, yo, what's up, dude? I'm at work again. And he's like, look, K-Fed's gonna be in town tomorrow. And I like stopped him. I'm like, bro, I told you I don't want to meet him. I'm good. He goes, look, just go to dinner with us. Just meet him. At least come to dinner. And I'm like, all right. I go, yo, we're going to Steak 44. It's like the best steakhouse in the whole fucking city. He's buying. And I was like, I'm at least gonna get a good meal out of this, you
Well, he
know?
better be buying. I mean, you're working at Jersey Mike's. It would be rude as shit for him to be like, "Hey, man, you got to put up the money."
So, so I'm like, all right, cool. Go to dinner. I meet the guy and I'm like, yo, this dude is so nice, so down to earth, so cool. That was the moment I realized that never believe what's on the internet or in the tabloids. And we agreed that day to work together for the next year. And that was like my break right there. And 2 weeks later, I quit my job. And I haven't worked ever since in a day job type space.
So, how was it producing for him and DJing for him?
So, um, I can't go into like super detail because there's like NDAs and shit. I enjoyed it, to be honest. I only ended up working with him for 8 months, out of the year. Um, I was very, very happy to get into a space where I could focus solely on music. So for the next 8 months, I spent 2 weeks in LA every single month working with him, and then I'd be home. I was literally sleeping on my friend's couch for 2 weeks straight. Shout out to Ryan for even letting me to do that. He's like still one of my friends to this day. And I was like, look, I'm gonna use this as a stepping stone. I go, I know I'm obviously not gonna be Kevin Federline's producer for the rest of my life. So let me do the best job I can and try to build my project in a space so that when this deal ends, if it doesn't continue, I'm in a space where I don't have to go back to a job. So, song gets released by Dr. Fresh. Great response. He's big at this point, and he's doing really well touring. I'm getting support from him. I'm getting support from Wax. I'm creating these relationships with other artists in the G House world, like Vanilla Ace, Amin Edge and Dance, Clyde P, these guys who are like Destructo, like these guys who are in that realm, like, dude, at that time, Destructo was like doing shit with YG. And I'm just like, yo, like this dude's fucking lit. Like, I want to be associated with him. So fast forward to March of 2016, Miami Music Week. I'm there just networking, have no shows, doing everything I can. Dr. Fresh is there and he's like, yo, come to the Bygore party. Pulls me, he's like, you're tour managing for me today. And I'm just like, whatever, Tony. Like, I'll literally do anything right now. I don't care, you know? And plays the show. And I'll never forget this because it was like a turning point. On the car ride back, because he's playing trap music at this point. Like, in the original Dr. Fresh sound is like G House. And that's like what I discovered him as. He's like, he's like, I don't love this trap shit. He's like, I want to get back to like the original Dr. Fresh sound. And I'm just like, cool. He's like, let's collab. And I'm just like, whoa, what the fuck's happening? Like, this is sick. Right. And like in those situations, when you just come from a party, people will say things like that. And 95% of the time, nothing happens. Right. So I get back from Miami the next Monday. I had the song called Hello that I had already finished. Wax is playing it, Destructo's playing it, Mala's playing it, right? And this was a point where I was getting a little bit of momentum. So a little bit of selfishness of like songs I wanted to collab with people on started to come into play. And this song was getting a lot of hype. And I was like, fuck, dude, like, I don't know if I want to give him this. Like, it's pretty much done. And all these guys are playing it. Like, I don't know if I need him to be on it. And I don't know what it was, but something in me just said, fuck it, send it to him. And I send it to him, and he's like, holy shit, this is insane. He finished it in like 2 months, and we put it out. And the week it came out in May of 2016 on a Tuesday. And then on the Friday, this is before like this crazy like Spotify pitching era and shit. This is when SoundCloud was popping, and put the song out. Then on Friday, I had my first ever release on Nightbase. So in a 4 day span, the two biggest records of my entire career come out. And I'm just like, what's happening? And a week later, I started getting offers to tour, like out of state. And I was just like, whoa. Like, dude, Dylan Francis started playing Hello. Don Diablo played at Main Stage EDC and it was on the stream. All this crazy shit happened. And I was like, what's going on? Like 7 months ago, I was like, fuck this, I quit. And shit has just been insane from then.
Isn't it funny though that you need to feel that moment? Like there's always a turning point in like the hero's journey or the person's story where it's like you go all in and it doesn't work, but then you stick it out and you
Mhm.
keep going and like you have the contemplation of quitting. And I constantly find this: the successful people are just the ones who don't quit. They just kept going. Like, how
Literally.
many times would people have quit in your shoes? So many times.
Yeah. People do it now. And it's funny because, like, by this time, Thomas is managing me. He's bringing Daniel on the project because he hired Daniel to be a buyer at RB. And he's like, part of your job title is going to be to manage Ben day to day. And I already have a great relationship with Daniel. So I'm like, fuck it, let's go. Right. So that summer goes great. Play like 12 shows over the 3 months. And I'm just like, yo, this is amazing. Like, I'm starting to make a little bit of money. I'm meeting all these people. We're releasing great music. And then, like, the fall comes around, and I'm like, yo, I got all these big tracks coming out, like 400,000 streams on SoundCloud, and everyone's playing them and this. And I'm like, telling Thomas, like, yo, why isn't an agent signing me? Like, we're talking to a few agents, and all of them are like, oh, he's not ready. Right. This story's crazy because no one had done this at this time. And he's like, yeah, they just don't think you're ready. And I was like, I literally go, yo, fuck them all. We're going to do our own tour. And he's like, what do you mean? I go, we're going to book our own tour. And he's like, how are you going to do that? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. And over the next 4 weeks, I booked 17 shows myself.
That is
And then I got,
awesome.
it was insane. It was the most difficult month from a work standpoint ever, dealing with all these people. And I go, Tom, the goal was 20. Can can you help me get these other three shows? And he's like, I got it. He hit up promoter friends he had, and we booked three shows, and we had a 20-date tour set for Q1 of 2017. And I had this song called Guru, and I told him, I was like, look, this is gonna be like the next one, like the next hello, right? And they're like, all right. I was like, we're gonna do the Guru tour. It's not even out. Just trust me on this. Like back then, there was really no democracy within my team. It was like, I'm going to decide what we're doing, and you guys can either be on board or not, but I'm doing it either way. Which is not really a good way to work with a team. No, it's definitely not like that anymore. But they trusted the vision, and we put the song out on December 7th of 2016. And in 24 hours, it did 100,000 streams on SoundCloud
Wow.
and just went absolutely insane. And a week later, we dropped the tour, and every single agent we'd been talking to called Thomas and was like, who'd you sign with? Like, who did this tour? And he's like, didn't sign with anyone. We did it ourselves since you guys didn't want to sign us. And they're like, wow, we didn't like see the demand. And we're like, yeah, what you didn't know is over the past 2 years, he's been traveling the country, meeting every single possible talent buyer he could. But we didn't have to tell you that. You just didn't trust us. So I told Thomas, make him wait. And then 3 months later, 2.5 months later, we signed with my agent Rob, who I've been with ever since, and he's the fucking best. I love him.
I love that you made them wait.
Fuck yeah, we got to make him wait. Like you guys didn't want to do it. Like I'm gonna show you why you should have. And now that you want me, the ball's in my court.
Yeah. You flipped the script and then you made them sweat for it.
Exactly. And that was I mean, it's like I said, right? I'm gonna figure it out no matter what. And sometimes it just comes down to like determination and hard work. And that's just what I had to do. And having this vision of something that seems impossible to everyone but me. And I'm going to be like, when people tell me no, I'm like, oh, all right, fuck off. I'm going to show you why it's a yes.
You and I both feel the same way. I hate being told what to do.
Mhm.
And yeah, if you doubt, like I'm competitive as well. Like competition to me is one of the best things because competition like gets me going. It's like, oh, now you've given me a reason to care. as opposed to before when we don't want. There's nothing at stake. That's like it's different. But I love that feeling of like, oh, you want to doubt me, huh? Let me show you what I got. Oh, you don't think it's possible for this to be done?
Mm-hmm.
Might not be possible for you. It's possible for me. Let me show you. And those things and those feelings, yeah, I love that feeling.
It's the best because when you finally finish the job and then you're just sitting there and everyone's like, how did you do this? And you're like, it doesn't matter. I fucking told you I was going to do it and now it's done.
You know, there's a quote that says, first they're going to say, you can't do it. And then they're going to say, how did you do it?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then I'm not going to tell them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You only tell the people that are on your team. And, you know, thinking about, you know, those agents and those deals, part of me thinks that you were almost too hot. Like, and by not signing you, they're waiting for you to like drop a little bit in terms of like your appeal so they can get a better deal for themselves. Like there is a part of that where like they're like, look, there is potential here, but at the moment there's like too much heat. So maybe we just wait like 3 months, the heat drops, and then we get him at a cheaper price. And you obviously didn't wait for that to happen, but I know there are a lot of artists who would have waited, and then they would have
Totally.
signed a deal that wasn't as good.
Yeah, I'm not waiting. When I have a vision for something and I really believe in it, nothing is going to stop me. And it's cool because like maybe those other agents would have done that, but Rob does honest and good business. And I think that's why I thoroughly enjoy working with him. Like he'll bring a deal to us for a show and I'm gonna be like, we should get more money for this. And I'd be like, no, you shouldn't. And here's why. Because your ticket value is not this high in that market. Yeah, just because your ticket value is this high in this other market that might be close to it, you didn't sell enough tickets to make it make sense for this promoter. So if I asked him for this much money and you don't sell the shit out, you're not going back for a while. So he's like, you can make the choice and you can take the fair deal and have more longevity and you're going to make more over time, or you can take the risk. And he goes, I'm telling you right now, because dude, Rob's been doing this for like 15 years. Like he discovered Avicii, like
Wow.
he knows what he's doing, So I'm like, all right, Rob, I trust you. Let's just go with it. He's dude's the best. Like literally.
Yeah, the value of good representation and good team cannot be undersold. Like it
Yeah.
is crucial to your success.
100% because you can only go so far by yourself. You know, it gets to a point where the workload is just too much. You just can't. Like, how am I supposed to field offers, right? Pitch myself to all these promoters who I don't even know, right? Make the music, manage the day to day, and it's just not. It's not reality, you know.
No, like it genuinely is not possible.
Oh, we froze.
Yeah. Are you back?
Hello.
Yeah. You're still here. I still got you.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. Yeah, I just froze for a minute.
Yeah. No, we're I can still hear you. So
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you too. So yeah, it's just that's that's not really a reality to do it on your own.
yeah. Yeah. Can I ask something that I've always been interested in house music and in DJs is like the drop. The drop is
Okay.
like key to the feeling of like you need to build the the anticipation of the drop. And there is something about, you know, you build, and then there is no drop. And there are definitely songs that do that. But what is it about a drop to you when you're making the music and when you're thinking about it that it does? And what is that feeling like? Because you're obviously seeing a crowd respond to it. Like, what do you think that is for when people listen to it?
I think it gives them a feeling. This is a good question because now when I send people music, I'm like, yo, what do you feel when you listen to this? Because I don't want to know what they hear. Like I know it's God, sounds like such a fucking douche saying this. I know it sounds good, but I want to know what you feel, right? And I think it's that feeling like when something drops, you get goosebumps. And there's only certain things in the world that can do that for you. Like maybe some insane part of a movie or a song, you know? And when the song drops, I want you to get a couple different feelings, right? If it's like dark and grimy, like we're gonna go into like the West Coast, Mac Dre fucking thing. Like, I want you to have a fucking Thiz face on, like, oh my God, like, what was that? Right? But then there's certain aspects where, like, if I'm working on something that might be houseier and more vocal driven, like I'm thinking about it right now and I'm getting goosebumps, right? Like, I want you to get goosebumps when that song drops and you're just like, oh my God, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard in my life. You know, so like that drop is where the energy comes from, and it kind of like drives you forward. And the whole purpose of it is like, for me, from a musical standpoint, is to bring everyone together. You know, I love how music brings people together and creates a space where people don't think about anything, don't worry about anything, and they're just lost in that space of the music. And I feel like that is exactly what I want every drop that I have to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think drops are so unique. Like I know I feel it. Like the build up of a drop, like you can sense it coming, and the crowd can sense it. The crowd knows that something's going to happen. You don't
Yep.
like even if you've heard the song before, you know it's coming, and just that sense of anticipation just gets everyone tuned in. It's like the ticking time bomb. You know that it's coming, and but because you know it's coming, that's the fun part. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I think that's why fake outs really work as well. Cause like there's obviously so many videos of DJs doing fake outs and you hear the crowd go, oh, and the whole crowd communally sighs. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that there is something, as you said, really cool about having a crowd of people feel the same way simultaneously.
Yep. 100%. It's like, there's no feeling like it. Like, I know that there's for me, the two most safest places in the world for me are when I'm in the studio and when I'm DJing, because I go into this meditative state where there's nothing else in the world that really matters. And I'm not thinking about anything other than the music and the crowd, you know? And when I'm in the studio, it's the same thing when I'm producing. I'm just like, phones are away, everything's away. Um, and it's just me and the computer and the sounds. And it's like a puzzle. It's like, all right, where's this going? Where's this going? Where's this going? And there's something really beautiful about having like a blank canvas. And I look at it because I come from graffiti, right? So like I used to make canvases and it's like, all right, well, we got this color here and this letter and this. And you have this blank canvas and it all comes together. And I look at music the exact same way, where you're literally taking frequencies from the world, putting them all together to create this piece that could change someone's life. What's cooler than that? Like, I don't think there's anything cooler than that. Like, yo, imagine someone listened to this. I mean, it's happened. People are like, yo, I listened to this song and it made me not want to commit suicide. That's some heavy shit, right? And I'm like, I've heard that before. People still tell me that. And I'm just like, this is crazy. And that's what like keeps driving me forward. You know, at this point, like, yes, this is my career. So like there's a money aspect involved, right? But that's not the purpose of what I do. The purpose of what I do is to help influence people to have a better life. And think about everyone that comes to shows. Like, a lot of times people come to shows because they want to forget about the bullshit they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So I have the opportunity to help them be in that space. Like, what's like, I get to help people every single day. That's amazing. Like, I firmly believe my purpose in life is to help others and serve people with music. Just it's kind of cool.
You know, it's interesting because, like, I think about my own perspective on art and on music when I was younger. And there is this, like, almost feeling of like, oh, it's just art. It doesn't matter. Because
Mm-hmm.
during school, you're like, what they focus on is the quote unquote education, the
Yes.
math, the science, the English, all that kind of stuff. And the older I get, And the more I speak to people like yourself, the more my view on that changes. And the more I start thinking that life is actually art. That's where life is. Like it is in the painting that makes you feel something. That when you look at it, you cannot help but feel an emotion. It's uncontrollable. It just comes to you. It's in a book that you read that made you completely change the way that you view the world. It's in a song that takes you out of your own head and makes you feel something else. Like that is ultimately where we need to put energy and focus, is like our own creativity, because ultimately that's that's almost the purest expression of what it is to be human.
100%. And I think that, yeah, honestly, you put it perfect. And I think that we need more of that in the world overall, because as technology changes, now we have AI and all this shit, like everything's so digital, like we're getting away from like the human aspect of things, which is what creates feelings that we have. Like in 15 years, are people going to not have feelings anymore? Like, yo, we're just shutting everything off. There's no more feelings. Like, fuck that. That shit sounds horrible, right? Like, I can boldly say, like, I am an emotional person. I have a lot of feelings, as most artists are, and I work on my self awareness on a daily basis, right? Because I firmly believe that if I can be as self aware as possible, I'm going to be able to relate that into the music so that people can feel those things that I'm feeling, and who's going to be able to relate to that? You put it perfect, like that is what art truly is and makes it so special.
Yeah, and I think like I feel sorry for people who haven't found their version of that, because I think whether you put it out to the world or not, I think your own creativity, if you're allowed to express it or you give yourself permission to express it, you'll find parts of yourself you didn't know were there. Like you'll
Totally.
discover things about yourself. I made a commitment to myself this year that I would write every single day. It would be a thought a day for 365 days. And I've written every day, even on days where I'm traveling, I'm on the plane, I'm like jet lag or whatever. I'm just like, I'm going to type something out on my phone and just that'll be my thought. But what it taught me was like the things I think I don't really understand until I really take the time to think about them. I take the time to express myself. It's like, when you're painting, you don't know you feel this way until the paint kind of hits and you're brushing aggressively and you're like, why am I annoyed? And it's this self-reflective kind of expression of what you do.
Yeah. I'm going to challenge you a little bit on this because you kind of struck me when you said you feel bad for people who haven't found that space yet, right?
I think it's an empathy of
Okay.
like
Only because, like, a lot of times when someone hasn't found that yet, this is in my experience, they're not in a space where they're ready to receive that type of thing. It could have been right in front of them for the last 5 years, but because they don't have an awareness where they're able to receive something of that sort, they haven't received it yet. It could be right there. And a lot of times it is, right? So why haven't they been in a space with that? Why aren't they aware of like who they are and what their purpose is? Like I ask people all the time, like, yo, what's your purpose in life? No one can answer that question. It's a very, very difficult question. And you have to do a lot of work on yourself to really understand what that may be. And I think that question scares a lot of people because the world is so molded by a corporate model that if you ask them what their purpose in life, it's just like make money, have a family, and be happy. And I'm like, so how do you do that? Because you hate your job, you have a terrible relationship that you're not happy about. So like you just make money. Sounds like you're not happy at all. So what's your purpose? I'm not, just so you know, I'm not saying this is you. I'm just saying in general,
general. Yeah.
a lot of times when I ask people this question, they'll tell me this and I'll say this to them and they'll be like, yo, what the fuck? Like, I didn't even think about that. And I go, yeah, because you go to your job, I'm not saying this is bad. Some people just like working. I can't do corporate. It's not for me. But open your eyes to like what's actually really happening around you, you know? And I think a lot of times people don't want to be aware of it because then they have to face the reality. And that's a difficult part about being aware of so much and being so self-aware. It's like you have to face reality of things and live so honestly and truthfully that it can make things really difficult. But long term, I think you'll be happier.
I agree. I think the the challenge with the idea of I want to be happy is that
Mhm.
happy, like everything else, is a feeling. And the
Yep.
constant pursuit of a constant state of happiness means that it doesn't feel like anything because you feel that constantly. So if you feel something all the time, it's almost numbing. And then the
Correct.
opposite. So when you feel sad, it's a huge swing of like, oh, I'm sad. And it feels so different to being happy because you're only focused on happiness that you'll never find that balance. But I think, as you said, being self-aware. So I think content and peace, being peaceful with your emotions is a way better place. And I agree. I think that the happiness mindset is a function of our society in the sense that it promotes capitalism in a way where if I'm always wanting to be happy and I feel happy when I buy something, well, then I'm going to constantly buy because I'm always wanting to be happy. And I
Yep.
think if we take a step back and be like, I want to be okay with feeling sad and I want to feel okay with being angry and I want to feel okay with being happy and know that it's a spectrum of the waves that I will feel throughout my life, but I can get through them all is a way better place to be in. And if you can add purpose in there, then you will find that life is actually pretty enjoyable in general throughout the lived experience.
I have nothing to say, but you are 100% right. And I think it boils down to living a simple life and realizing that you don't have to have all these extravagant, crazy, beautiful things. Like I like nice shit. Like I'm gonna buy nice shit sometimes. It's also like a little bit of part of being an artist, but like I used to do that. I was known as like the DJ who like rocked Versace. I was like the Versace DJ. Everyone knew me as that before anyone was doing it. But like right now I'm like back to my roots, you know? Like I skated my whole life, right? Like all last summer I rocked a fucking tank top and Dickies every show. I was just like, bro, like simple. I want the focus to be on the music. The focus has been on me for so long. And I think that's because I didn't believe that I was making the level of quality music where it needed to be, right? So I was like, let me put this emphasis on the image, right? Well, I don't believe that anymore. So cool. Let's have a cool brand that's fun and welcoming and accepting because like I'm not this hard ass dude who's like a fucking gangster G house guy. Like I don't come from that. Yeah, like I may have been involved with some street shit in my life, but like that doesn't make me who I am. Like I'm a big lover. I love people. I love being around people. I love getting to know others, but I'm also quiet, right? But everything doesn't have to be so complicated. Let's simplify it. Let's have the focus on the music. Like literally right now, like this merch we're about to drop, like I have a slogan. It's like less internet, more music, right? Because there's so much emphasis on it. And it's just, I feel like music is losing its value in a lot of ways because everything is so focused on like TikTok going viral and Instagram and Twitter and this like yeah, they're great platforms and they've also made the music industry a bigger space, right? But yo, there's so much shitty music coming out now. Like, let's have some quality control. There's a reason that not all this music is going viral because it sucks, right? And like, I'll say that. Like, I'm not saying I make the greatest music in the world. I think it's amazing. I love it. I make it for me, right? And I'm thankful that there's people that listen to it and enjoy it and come to the shows. But I think the internet has put a lot of emphasis on music that's not really good, and it's funny, we were talking earlier. I think that's why a lot of the time, like the cream of the crop will rise, like fucking Benny. and that whole BSF crew because, yo, were doing something authentic that related to a lot of people from the 90s because it had that sound and the quality was amazing. And people were like, yo, what is this shit? It's new, it's fresh. And what you guys don't know is like, nah, this is like a new take on 90s hip hop, but it's coming out of Buffalo, which is like also roots for me. So it's like when I discovered this shit, I was like, I got to work with these guys. Right. And it's funny because one of my students from the music academy, she's from Buffalo, so we related immediately. And I was talking to her, I was like, yo, this is the Griselda shit. She's like, Griselda? She's like, how do you know Griselda? And I was like, I'm a hip hop head, like tried and true, right? Like OG shit, like Big L, fucking Mob Deep, all the shit from back in the day, you know? Like then you go West Coast, like I like showed her Drew Down and she's like, yo, who's Drew Down? And I'm like, yo, this is like that real Bay Area shit, like gangster pimp shit. She's like, this is crazy. I'm like, yeah, this is ill, right? So she goes, I know Benny's manager. Like, I can link you guys. And I was like, what? Like, what is
Wow.
happening? Right? Linked me with Jake. And Jake was like, oh, yeah, bro. Like, I know who you are. Like, you're out in Arizona doing this. And I was like, this dude's in hip hop. Like, how does he know any of this shit? And he likes house music. Um, and started working with him. It was kind of crazy. I was just like, I want to work with Rick. I want to work with Young World. Did records with that. I did, I think, two records with El Camino.
Yeah.
Um, the one with Benny, like, and like, it's funny because like one of their homies, Hezi, was like, "Yeah, bro, like you're the EDM BSF," and I was just like, "What? This is crazy." I'm not claiming that because I
Well, I
just.
would claim that so much. The Black Soprano family. To be honest, though, when I was talking to Rick Hyde, he was like, when you get the gold chain and when you get the Soprano family, that's when you know you're really part of them. But yeah, that is so cool. It's like, yeah, it's this weird world of like, and you mentioned people that I love. Big L to me is one of the like most underrated rappers right now. Like in the sense of he's been gone for a long time. Rest in peace, Big L. But like it's been over 20 years since he's passed. And only true hip hop heads know. He had released one mixtape when he was alive, and then he
Mhm.
had another album when he passed away. But like that's it. That's all we got. And
Yeah.
then it was like, but then people forget. And I agree. I think the great thing about Benny and the whole crew and the type of music they make is, as you said, it was genuinely a new take on something that has a lot of historical meaning to a lot of people.
Hmm.
And it was focused on making their music, not making music that will pop off. And there is a huge difference between that pursuit.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to bring that up, like because of what we were just talking about, you know? And I was like, these dudes are making shit that they love and they believe in. To me, that's cooler than like the fucking TikTok song that just popped off. Like to me, that shit's lame, right? And like it was even cooler like when I finally met them, like they brought me in like one of their own. And like it was cool. Like they came out to Phoenix, and there was a Dirk show out here, and I hung out with the whole crew that day. Went to the studio with Rick, recorded a bunch of records. Met them, met Benny, and they were all just like, yo, you're the guy that's been doing this, this, and this. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, cool. They were there for 2 days. Yo, I took them to a fucking EDM show,
Wow. What
right?
was their reaction like?
Yo, at first, because like the first day we had to do the hip hop show, right? And they're like, yo, what's going on tomorrow? I was like, yo, I got this thing planned. Gordo, who used to be Carnage, is in town. Like, it's my team show. Got to set up with the table. Like, everything's taken care of. I was like trying to host these dudes and like trying to like prove myself. And what's hilarious is the day before they got there, I was dating this girl that lived in San Diego, and I was on my way to the airport to fly to go see her, spend the weekend, and Rick called me and was like, "Yo, we're gonna be in Phoenix tomorrow. Like, let's link up." I was like, "Cool, I'll see you tomorrow." Called her, was like, "I ain't coming." Right? She was not happy, but had to do it, right? and took them to the show, and like they were so into it. They're like, yo, this shit's crazy. Like everyone's having a good time and partying, and there's like no drama, and like the hip hop world's different in that realm, you know? Like it's different at the club and at the shows, you know? Like shit gets real gangster sometimes. At the EDM show, it's not like that. So they're like, every time I talk to them, like, yo, bro, like Bijou, when's the next rave? And I'm like, whenever you're trying to go, like, let's do it, you know? And they're super into it. We've been talking. I don't know when it's gonna happen or if, but we've been talking about doing like an EDM show with them in Buffalo,
That is so cool.
which would be really, really cool. We've been talking about it for like a year. Like City Boy will call me randomly, like, bro, when are we gonna do this show? And I'm like, man, my tour schedule's insane. Like, you guys gotta plan it, and then you gotta like send it to my agent, and we gotta do this. He's like, nah, fuck that. Let's just do the show. And I'm like,
That's hip hop right there.
yeah,
Yeah, that is the epitome of like, nah, fuck that shit. Let's just get this going. Like, let's just commit.
yeah,
You and I commit.
yeah. So I'm gonna be out there in October. I haven't even told them yet, but I want to talk to them about it and like see what's going on. So
That's
because
funny.
I'm
I might come out to the States in October. I got a friend in New York who moved.
when
It's like early October. So I'm thinking like maybe around the 7th is when they're going. And I've got another friend. He's like on YouTube. He's pretty big on YouTube and TikTok. And so he's gonna stay on for a little bit and book like collabs. So I was like, hey, Daz, if you're staying, then I might stay and also see if there are any collabs I can do while I'm away.
well, October 15th, I'll be in Buffalo.
There is a good chance that I'll be there too.
All right, there you go. Because the day I got a 3-day run that week on the East Coast, and it finishes in a city in New York that is only 4 hours drive from Buffalo. So I'm gonna drive to Buff the next day. The Bills play Sunday night football that night, which I know you know how important the Bills are to all of us. And I'm going to the game, and I'm gonna stay till Tuesday, so I'll be there.
Well, if I don't have any better reason than to go and link up with you in person, then hey, this is that opportunity, when you are like, hey, Rick is calling, I'm gonna be in town. This is that my version of that.
Exactly. And the whole BSF crew is gonna be in. It's the Bills home game. They're gonna be in Buffalo.
All right. Well, I might have to buy tickets.
I mean, you already know where we're gonna be at, so you let us know.
All right, done. Done. And I feel like, it's weird. Like I'm starting to feel like when I went to Italy, right? I went to Italy recently and
Yeah.
I went to a random shop and they were playing Griselda in
Mhm.
in the shop, and I was like, hey, I love your music taste, number one. And number two, I interviewed Rick Hyde from Griselda. Like it was so weird for me to be international and then be actually like, we can have a conversation about this. But like, it's weird to me that even you and I are doing this right now. I remember when I started and I
Mhm.
was talking to people about, wanting to start talking to people and interviewing artists. And they're like, who are you going to get, man? And I'm like, fucking, I'm not going to get anyone good for a while. Like it's going to be, I'm aware of that. You don't need, it's not like tomorrow I'm going to go, all right, I've got Drake on the show 3 episodes in. Like I knew that from the beginning, but now we're talking and it's kind of weird to me. It's that like I'm getting people at your level and that the people that I'm talking to, like and even Rick Hyde, I was like, I genuinely listen to Rick Hyde. Like, I don't know
Mhm.
how this is happening, but it's that like commitment. And it's like what you said, you just got to go for it.
Yep. Literally. And now you're doing it, which is dope. Have you done one with Heem yet?
No.
I got a record with Heem that we've been sitting on for like I gotta rework it because it's not in the realm of like the music I'm putting out anymore. Cause like my sound has gotten like a lot houseier. But like, dude, I have another Rick Hyde vocal just sitting that I could work with. Um, the Young World, like I had that the whole Street Knowledge EP. Like, let me read this off for you because this was like
Yeah, I actually
Rick
was
Hyde.
looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like Rick Hyde, Tony Watts. Tony Watts is a Phoenix guy, right? Tony Watts, El Camino, Young World, and Chase Fetty. Like no one in like I'm a boast right now. No one in dance music has done that shit. Like
No,
no one.
that's what intrigued me about you. Was like when I was looking, I was like, wait, this you're not just any house music guy. Like you're not. You're doing things that not everyone else is doing. And then I was like, I I had no idea that number one, they were even open to like collaborating in that space. Like it's just I feel like you're on the cusp of almost a new genre of music where like you
Mhm.
can find the crossover between hip hop house and literally get that apex.
Totally. Which is like it's the goal, like this is funny. I've been sitting on this remake of Welcome to the Party. Is it Welcome? No, this song it has this Pop Smoke sample on it, and like for 2 years, people have been like, put the record out, put the record out. And I'm just like, can't clear that shit, bro. Like, it's crazy. Like, I had back in 2016, I had a record with a Nipsey sample on it. Nipsey Hussle's my favorite rapper of all time. Like, just the message he brings, I fully embrace, and it's like something that I've brought into my brand and like what I preach and shit. And like, I was in the process of clearing that Nipsey vocal as a feature when he got killed. And it was like, that was a tough one for me because that was like my biggest dream ever. Right. And I'm like, that can never happen now. Right. So that's like, there's a very, very close connection for me and that whole thing. Like, I never met him. Right. Which I probably would have happened. But like, I got to go to his show at Palladium for his album release, where he brought out like YG, Snoop, Diddy, like that's the closest I ever got. But like when that happened, that was like a moment I think in my career where I was like, yo, to this day, it still bothers me sometimes. Like that can never happen. I will never be able to do a record with my favorite rapper of all time because they're no longer living. So I don't know what the significance of that is right now. It just came to me, but like I have, I think it's a thing with pop too. Like that is never gonna get cleared. You know, just one of those things that can't happen.
That's one of my like I for me like my key rapper in terms of like this started this whole journey was 50 Cent. And I don't
Mhm.
know how I'll react when he inevitably passes. I hope it's not for a long, 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 long time.
Yeah,
But I don't know what that would be like. Like I haven't lost anyone that was so significant to me yet. And I know that that will happen. I love so many rappers that are no longer with us, but they were like, I didn't even know about them until after they passed. So it's like this weird relationship. But yeah, it must feel, or must have been shocking in that sense of like how close you were, what it meant, and like for your favorite rapper genuinely to pass away suddenly, like just
yeah,
that like emotionally, it must have been really difficult.
extremely. And I went to LA the next week and like literally went to Crenshaw and went to the store and saw everything. Like one of my best friends, Kalina Zanders, who is another person I work with, she also had that was something that brought us together, was like our love for him. So like we went together, got tattooed that day in like dedication to him, and then wrote a song the next day, like that was dedicated to him. Like if you listen to One Life, which is a song her and I put out, like we kind of rewrote a specific part of one of his songs and recut it, and like her and I have that bond forever, which is cool. But like to have that like just pulled out of your grasp, yo, that shit sucks.
Yeah.
Like I've been working so hard for so long at this, and like it's selfish of me to say because like, yo, this person literally lost their life, right? And like family members and things of that sort. But I can't really I can't relate in that sense, you know? But like something that I wanted my entire life was pulled out of my hands. I can't say my whole life, but since I started making music and became a fan of his. So for like 7 years. You know, like you're working towards this goal and then it's just gone. It's just like it's crazy. You kind of just got to keep pushing. It's like one of those things where just figure it out. But what was cool was that led me to this rapper named Marco XO, who I discovered, who ended up being on the song, and I formed a new relationship out of it. You know, so maybe that was supposed to happen for me in that sense.
Yeah.
Just cool.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's also good for people to just be influences on you.
Yeah, like dude, Nipsey's such a good influence in so many ways. You know, like that dude had such a business mind. He read so many books. Like if you can go to like you can Google it. There's a list of every book that dude read, and it's crazy the books that he read. Like, do you remember when he had the album that he sold for $100?
Yeah.
Do you know where that idea stemmed from?
No.
All right, so this is the final. I'm gonna leave you with this.
All right. And then I have my last question that I finish on, and then we're good.
Cool. So I don't remember the name of the book, right? But there was this high-end restaurant in Philadelphia, right? And it was like lobster, steak, all that. But they wanted to find a way to make like an authentic Philly cheesesteak, right? Um, and the way they were gonna do, like, what are we gonna do? Like, how are we gonna do this, right? And they're like, well, it's a steakhouse. So why don't we try to make this Philly cheesesteak and let's make it $100. Let's have $100 Philly cheesesteak with like Wagyu steak on bread, but like just the regular ingredients, right? And they're like, no, that shit's never gonna work. And the chef was like, just do it, right? It's gonna create noise because it was a brand new place, no one knew about it. And in that world of time, it went viral. People were like, yo, what's this $100 steak? Right? Like, we got to go try this thing. $100 cheesesteak. That's absurd. Like, you can get it for $5. It can't be that good. And it was this huge thing and put the restaurant on the map. Right? You have this outlandish idea that no one, this brings me literally back to the beginning of our conversation. So I'm bringing it back to the beginning. This brings it back to this outlandish idea that no one thinks can be real or that you can ever accomplish. And you do it, and then it goes huge. So he took this and he told his team, I'm going to have this meet and greet, this album and this merch for $100. And it was marketed as this $100 album, which no one had ever done. And he sold 10,000 of them. Like I think Jay-Z bought 1,000 of them. And that's how Jay-Z discovered him, because it's like, who's this guy charging $100 for an album? Right? It was this massive thing. And it was literally a mixtape. That shit wasn't even an album. Like, who does that? Like, what? It's so crazy, but like so cool, you know?
Yeah. It's like the self-belief to know that your art is worth that much, but also just to go for it of like, hey, no one else is doing it. And I think that,
Exactly.
and that's exactly what you're doing, man. And that's why, I always appreciate you giving us time. And I only have one more question for you before we wrap up. Uh, I think I might kind of know the answer already, but I do have to ask it. If you had to recommend one album that everybody should listen to at least once to get an appreciation of, cannot be your own music, can be any genre of music, what would it be?
You're making it very difficult for me right now.
Well, it's the joys of hosting your own show.
I gotta say it would have to be Victory Lap.
Yeah.
Nipsey Victory Lap. I'm guessing that's what you were probably thinking.
Yeah. Well, I kind of knew we were talking about Nipsey for a while, and then you were in that space, and I know for a fact that out that the answer to that question can change over time. It was just like in this moment in time, how you're feeling of like just something that people should appreciate. But it is a fantastic choice for a project.
I think so too, because it's a very, very inspiring piece. And like, I'm very in the world of spirituality, which we didn't have time to go into today. But like, if you go to my Instagram, like, I got away from it for a while and kind of lost myself. And within the last 6 months, I found that space again. And if you go to like my socials now, you can see that that's been very much implemented into what's going on with my music and what I'm pushing right now. Like it's an extremely, extremely positive message. And it's crazy because like I was at shows, I didn't know like people really care about it. Like it's cool, people comment, but like I'm at shows now, and people are like, yo, thank you for everything you're saying on the internet. It's such a great change from all the bullshit, and we appreciate you being so positive. And I'm just like, oh, that's cool. I didn't even know what this was doing, but I'm glad it's helping people.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is, man. And your music is helping people. It's therapeutic. And I'm excited to see what you continue to do. I know you've got the schedule release for your drops for the rest of the year. You've got an album and project you're working on. So yeah, I know it's only going to continue, and I appreciate your time. For anyone who hasn't checked him out, make sure you check out his socials, make sure you check out his Spotify, make sure you support. You've got merch coming out as well.
Yeah.
You had a you would like had a music academy we didn't talk about. So good
Yeah.
excuse for us to do this again, man. But it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Is
I
there anything
appreciate
else you
it.
wanted to plug or shout out?
Nah, I mean, just shout out to everyone who fucking supports what I do and has been along for the ride. So I'm very, very appreciative because like without the fans, like you can't do this. This doesn't exist.
Agreed. They keep us going.